talk about it all is Bishop David O'Connell of Trenton, New Jersey, the former president of Catholic University of America. Thank you so much for being here, sir. Do you think these statements could lead to more people showing up in the pews this Sunday, or how do you think the public will, the Catholic public will react? Do you think perhaps his words will be met with resistance?
Well, no one can doubt that Pope Francis has certainly taken the world by storm and grabbed the world's attention. And it does seem that almost every day when he speaks, he says something that focuses people's attention in a slightly different way on the message of the gospel and the message of the church. His interview today probably will surprise a lot of people, maybe even disappoint some. But I think what he said today is very much reflective of his thoughts and his feelings.
Pope Benedict, his predecessor, is still around. Certainly had a reputation for having different positions on some of these issues. How do you imagine he might be reacting to these statements?
Well, Pope Benedict was a scholar, a teacher, and that was the background that he brought to the papacy. Pope Francis was an archbishop, also a scholar, also a teacher, but has had more opportunities to serve people in a pastoral way as a priest and as Archbishop of Buenos Aires. You know, in his comments today, he said that the church needs to be a place of healing, a place to warm hearts. And it's very important for us to be near to the people. And the message is similar to the message of other popes. But it just seems that Pope Francis has the opportunity more often than not to put that into a very concrete, visible practice.
I want to read a bit of this interview for you and get your response. Quote, "We cannot insist only on issues related to abortion, gay marriage, and the use of contraceptive methods. I have not spoken much about these things, and I was reprimanded for that. It is not necessary to talk about these issues all the time." Now, Pope John Paul II, he rejected the use of condoms to control the spread of AIDS. How much of a departure do you see this for Pope Francis from his predecessors?
Well, I think it is a slight departure.
Just slight?
You know, a lot. Yeah, I do. I don't think it's a great departure. I think it's a slight departure. What he's saying, and I think we have to be very careful as we read, this was an interview. This was not an instance of papal pronouncement or papal teaching. And this pope is accustomed to speak off the cuff and to speak in a very common way with people. And I think that's what you saw in this interview that he gave today. He really was just sharing some of his thoughts and reflections. And I think what he is saying is, you know, when the media presents the Catholic Church, almost in terms of these singular issues. The Catholic Church is much bigger, much broader, much more extensive, and has a lot to offer, in addition to its focus on some of the specific moral teachings. And I think that's really what the Pope was trying to say. Let's look at the Church more broadly. You know, the Pope constantly talks about forgiveness. He constantly talks about concern for the poor. He constantly talks about mercy. And I think what he's trying to do is saying, hey, folks, the Church has a lot more to offer than just stringent Catholic teaching on certain subjects. I think that's all that he was saying.
Lastly, sir, the Pope says he was asked by someone if he approves of homosexuality. He replied, quote, "I replied with another question. Tell me, when God looks at a gay person, does he endorse the existence of this person with love or reject and condemn this person? We must always consider the person." How do you view a comment like that? Is that him reaching out to the gay community? Is it really just a new way of saying, hate the sin, love the sinner?
I think what the Pope is talking about really is a fundamental love and respect for people of all kinds, all persuasions, all races, all orientations, that we really are obliged to love everyone. That's what the Lord Jesus has asked us to do. And I think the Holy Father wants to emphasize that. You know, in the teaching of the Church, in the Catechism in the Church, and in the teachings of recent popes, the Church has always put forward that we should not discriminate against people because of their sexual orientation. And I think this Pope is just raising that up to people's consciousness, that we are obliged first and foremost, always and everywhere, to show love and respect for other people.
All right, Bishop David O'Connell, thank you so much.